But one thing I know I will set the DVR now just in case I'm not in front of the television. I want to say it is 10:30 local time. From Cooperstown, New York, Rickey Henderson, Jim Rice, both inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I do believe that our next guest will be traveling to Cooperstown to see that. He's not traveling? Oh, okay. Well, here is a Hall of Famer himself, Tony Gwynn, on the Corky's Hotline. Tony, always a pleasure. This is Darren Smith. How are you?
Darren, how are you?
I'm doing well. I thought this was a can't miss moment here for Rico Suave getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I do too. Had some surgery on Monday, and so kind of had to sit here and watch it on TV. But much like you, I will have the DVR going, and I'm really interested in hearing this speech on Sunday. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it says something about Rickey Henderson, and for you guys that had a chance to play with him, maybe this is not as a surprise at all. But I read that Rickey Henderson is taking lessons and speech lessons to prepare for this coming up on Sunday. And Rickey has been certainly there's a million great stories, and most of them are true. But I bet you that doesn't surprise you that Rickey Henderson would do something like that in preparation of this moment.
No, not at all. I mean, it's the Hall of Fame, and from the moment, the first moment that I found out that I was a Hall of Famer. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you concern yourself with what you're going to say on that day. And so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I know the other Hall of Famers are telling him, hey, keep it short, keep it crisp, keep it succinct. And Rickey's Rickey, and I fully expect Rickey to go out, and it might start out that way. It might start out with him trying to come across as a professional. But you know what? The Hall of Fame, this is your opportunity to thank those people who helped you get to that point. And I expect at some point Rickey's going to be Rickey, and we're going to hear some third person. We're going to hear a couple of stories, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun.
Do you remember that moment? How much of that do you remember when you were actually up there at the podium? And I was there. I mean, the Ripken crowd and the Gwynn crowd, you guys, it was still, I think, the biggest one ever. Do you remember a lot of the time that you spent up there, or is it a bit of a blur?
Oh, yeah. You remember everything. I remember, after they take the picture, they give you your plaque, you take the picture. I'm getting ready to go up and, start my speech, and I forget my notes. I had to go back and get my notes. And it's you feel the pressure. There's no question. Like I said, from the moment you find out you're a Hall of Famer until you actually have to get up there and deliver your speech, people are asking you every day, how's the speech coming? How's it coming? You got to finish, and so you concern yourself so much with that I think when you actually finally walk up there and you start to talk, it's more about, letting the people know who had an influence in your career, letting them know that you appreciate everything they did for you. And it's almost like once I got up there, I was a lot more relaxed once I got up there because I could actually tell people, all the people that helped me get to that point. So for me, it was, you remember it. I mean, that day for us, obviously with the size crowd that we have, you're never going to forget that. I don't care what else you do for the rest of your life. You're never going to forget that. I'm sure it's different for, each class because, in this year's case, I think, no question, Rickey and Jim Rice are the headliners here. And so, but for them on that day, it's their day. They should enjoy it. And that's, if I was there, that's what I would tell them both, enjoy it, because it's about you and your day and the people that helped you get to this point. So enjoy it, because it seems like it's an eternity to get to that day, but once that day comes, it kind of goes by pretty quickly.
Is it similar to anything else in life, either baseball or non-baseball? Maybe a wedding or something is it similar to any other feeling or experience that you've had?
I can't, no. I mean, getting married was stressful, but it wasn't that stressful. My kids, I've been to both of my kids' weddings, and they weren't that, I mean, it's more stress that you put on yourself because obviously, the world's watching and you want to do a good job. You want people to understand what you're saying. You don't want to go up there and start rambling, and and believe me, when you're up there, if you have a whole lot of people think like I did, I mean, it gets going, and you're going and going, and but you want to do a good job. You want, excuse me, people to think that you prepared and you've done a good job, but I can't think of anything else like it. It's really kind of unique in our sport that. If you make it to the Hall of Fame, that speech is what a lot of people are going to remember. They probably remember that more so than your playing career.
Probably. Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn here on Double X 1090. I heard a great story when the A's were in town. Jason Giambi told a Rickey Henderson story and said, hey, Rickey would show up sometimes to the yard and he'd say, Rickey doesn't feel real good today, so go ahead and swing away. Or Rickey feels real good today, so take a couple pitches because Rickey's going to run.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's got him. You batted behind him. Were there days like that where Rickey would walk in and say similar things at times?
Yeah, it was always on the positive. When he was here, he never came. There was never a day he came in and said, Rickey gonna shut it down today, T. You can go ahead and swing the bat. Rickey gonna take it easy. He never said. It was always, hey, if you can give Rickey a pitch here, Rickey could take it. Rickey, and especially once the game has started, because he just had an innate ability. Once he got on first, once he saw guys move, he knew pretty quickly whether or not he was going to be able to get a jump and go. And so a lot of times, I'd be up there taking pitches waiting for him to go. And usually the second time around, if he'd gotten on in the first, if he got on again, you could almost bet the farm he was going to go. And, Rickey never lifted weights. He had his own little things that he used to do. He used to go in spring training. He used to skip around the outfield in his socks, and he would just skip from one foul line to the other. And and when we first got him, we were all kind of mesmerized with the things that he was doing because he walked into the clubhouse with his bats over his shoulders and told everybody, Rickey Henderson's in the house now. Y'all got nothing to worry about because we're going to win a championship. He walked right into the clubhouse. He walked right into his locker, and one by one, everybody on our club went over and introduced himself, and it didn't do any good because he didn't remember names or anything, and he used to call me Gwynn when he first got traded over here. He used to call me Gwynn. He didn't call me Tony, and I said, Rickey, you can call me Tony, man. He said, no. He said, when you can hit the ball like you can hit the ball, Gwynn, that is your name. Your name is Gwynn. So, just little things like that just made him a fun guy to be around. I mean, because nobody worked at his craft harder. I think nobody enjoyed being out there and playing the game as much as he did. We were in Wrigley Field one day, and he's out in left field, and the Wrigley fans are giving him the business. And Steve Finley and I are both kind of got our eyes on him because in between pitches, he's turning around, yelling at the crowd in left field. And he's looking at the fence, is looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and we're kind of wondering, what is he saying to him? So at the end of the inning, he came in, and I said, Rickey, what are you telling those folks? He said, I'm telling those folks that they got the opportunity to see the greatest left fielder in the history of the game playing, and they up here screaming at me. They got no business screaming at Rickey like that because Rickey don't deserve that. and that was every day. It was every day. He made playing the game a lot of fun. He made, being on our club, he kept it loose. And, and again, this is the ultimate. This moment that he's going to have on Sunday will be the ultimate. And I hope that he really enjoys it because he's a unique player. He can hit the ball out of the ballpark. He can steal bases, score runs. He had a great eye. He was a great left fielder. He's kind of a unique kind of a guy, and so at dinner on Sunday night, I wonder, whose table is he going to sit at? He's going to sit at our table, the Punch and Judy table, the hodgepodge of baseball players, or will he sit at his own? Because really, he could have his own table.
And he might too. We're talking with Tony.
You're right.
Talking to Tony Gwynn here on Double X 1090. Do you think he gets the credit though for being smart as he was as a player? Because
No.
I mean, every story is about how Rickey and this, and when he picks up the bag, I'm the greatest. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for being a really brilliant baseball player.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. And when we got him, there was talk about Rickey doesn't work at his craft, and you got to motivate him to play, and and I totally agree with you. He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves because, let's face it, to me he's the greatest leadoff hitter who's ever played the game. I mean, because he could beat you getting on base, stealing bases. He could hit the ball out of the ballpark. He was a run producer. He scored runs. He knocked in runs. And he just had what we call baseball savvy. He had the ability to take a situation and make the most out of it. And he did it better than I think anybody who's ever, been in that leadoff spot. So, and he doesn't get a lot of credit because, Rickey will a lot of times say something or do something that, kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. But I'm telling you, when the lights were on and when game time came, he was as good as there's been.
Is it true that the year he broke the all-time runs record, there was a little in the clubhouse competition? There were a lot of guys that say, "Oh man, I'd kind of like to be the one to knock Rickey Henderson in," and then of course, nobody got to. He did it himself.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there was a couple of things, with Rickey because, when we were playing together, he had opportunities to be the all-time walk leader. He had the opportunity to be the all-time run scoring leader, and he was already the all-time stolen base leader. And yeah, we all kind of wanted to, we all wanted to be the guy to knock him in because more than anything, we were kind of putting side bets down on what he was going to do when he scored that run because, if he's on second base and you knock him in, camera's not going to be on the guy who knocks him in. It's going to be him coming across the plate. So we all were kind of wondering, okay, what's he going to do? And he ends up knocking himself in with a home run and slides in the home plate. And so, and again, that's typical Rickey. He slid across the plate, and everybody was there to greet him, and even when he got his 3,000th hit, I almost had to con him into playing that day because he was so focused on that being my last day that he didn't want to do anything to upstage that. And I was like, Rickey, what are you talking about? I said, man, you know, there's going to be 56,000 people here tomorrow to see you get your 3,000th hit, man. You got to go out and get it done, man. These people, that's what they live for that moment. They want to see it. And I told him, I said, look, man, I'm gonna take early hitting one last time. I want you to come out there with me. So him and Phil Nevin and I, we took early hitting that day, and he ended up getting his 3,000th hit the first time up. And again, that's a moment that I know for a lot of us here in San Diego, that's an impressive moment. I mean, you don't get an opportunity to see that very often, and so and that was a big day for him too because he really wanted that, and that was one that I think at that point he wasn't sure he was going to be able to get it, and sure enough, he gets it on the last day of the season. So he did a lot of things in the game that I don't think we're going to see again for a while.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Hey, Tony, before we let you go, we're talking to Tony Gwynn. Have you had a chance to see in its entirety the HBO documentary about Ted Williams?
I haven't yet. I mean, I've had people calling me, telling me how good it was, and I just haven't had a chance to see it. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
I watched that. It's once it's on, you can't take your eyes off it. I caught it again this morning, and it made me late for work. But I thought the best part. I mean, Jerry Coleman plays a big role. You play a big role in this, and your story about how I started asking my dad, who is this Ted Williams guy that's selling all this stuff in the Sears catalog? That was the first time you knew about Ted Williams. Who's this guy in the Sears catalog?
Yeah, it was, and that's funny because my dad made sure that every year we got a Sears catalog, and the Sears catalog, you'd go to the sports pages, and here's Ted Williams with a fishing pole, here's Ted Williams with a bat, with a ball, with a glove, with these cleats that had 9 lines on them, and I'd ask my dad, say, who's this Ted Williams guy? And that's how I first heard about Ted Williams. That's the first time I heard about him. And so, you start to do your homework, you start reading some books, and you realize that, this guy might have been one of the greatest hitters that ever lived. And I don't care to a man to this day, everybody that I ever talked to about hitting just marveled at how good a hitter Ted Williams was. And so, and you're talking about a guy who, gave 5 years of his life to the service and, missed it in the prime of his career. There's no telling what the numbers would look like if he'd had the ability to play those 5 years, but he never complained about it. He just continued to play, continued to put numbers up, and I've been lucky. I've had a chance to talk to Jerry Coleman and sit down with Ted and talk to Stan Musial and talk about how good a hitter he was. Jerry Coleman's just raved about how good Ted Williams was, and having the opportunity just to sit down and pick his brain a little bit was quite an honor too. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out here this weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, like I said, it's one of those. I watched it the first night it was out, and every time it's on now, because HBO will show it, here and there. I'm not sure what the exact schedule. You watch it every time from start to finish when you can. It's great, and you were great in it. So great job with that, Tony. Hey, I hope things go well for you here on Monday. Hopefully everything is going to be great there for you, and we thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.